So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time today to join us for this exciting joint federal and provincial funding announcement through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Plan that will support 6 community, culture, and recreation projects here in the City of London. My name is Jon-Paul McGonigle. I'm the Division Manager with the Parks and Recreation Department at the City of London, and it's my absolute pleasure to be the MC for this virtual announcement today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron. Sorry, I just having a technical difficulty, forgive me. We will begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenapowic peoples who have a long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. Additionally, there is a growing urban Indigenous population who make the City of London home. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations of Turtle Island. We are so excited and pleased to be joined today by Kate Young, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development and Official Languages, and Member of Parliament for London West on behalf of the Honourable Catherine McKenna, Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Peter Fragiskatos, Member of Parliament for London North Centre on behalf of the Honourable Catherine McKenna, Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. The Honourable Jeff Yurek, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and Member of Provincial Parliament for Elgin, Middlesex, London, on behalf of the Honourable Laurie Scott, Ontario's Minister of Infrastructure. I'd also like to introduce Your Worship, Ed Holder, Mayor of the City of London. I'd also just like to take an opportunity and recognize that we have other members of City Council, members of staff, and members of media who have joined us today. So welcome and thank you. I'd also like to thank those who are watching this announcement on the City of London's Facebook page. This announcement is being recorded and it will be posted on the City of London YouTube channel following the announcement. And following the speakers, we will have a few minutes for media questions. And so without further ado, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce Peter Fragiskatos, Member of Parliament for London North Centre, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Government of Canada.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that. It's great to be here this afternoon to join you today for this announcement. Thank you to everyone who is with us. Thank you also to the staff behind the scenes who worked very hard to organize the event. Happy to see Kate, Ed, great to see you as always. Minister Yurek, good to see you as well. Different levels of government, different political parties, in fact, still coming together to advance priorities for the community. The supported projects are going to have a very positive impact for the residents of the City of London and surrounding communities. For nearly a year now, we have faced enormous challenges together. Ontario communities, like those all across Canada, need help, and we are continuing to support them. Modern, accessible spaces provide Canadians and Londoners with places where they can connect, learn, and share common experiences. And now more than ever, we need to ensure these spaces are conducive for safe gatherings. That's why I'm pleased to announce, on behalf of the Federal Minister of Infrastructure, Catherine McKenna, that the Government of Canada is providing more than $3.9 million to support 6 community sport, recreation, and cultural projects here in London. I'm going to tell you about a few projects that are going to make a positive difference for the residents of the constituency that I have the honor of representing, London North Centre. First of all, there's the City of London's Carling Heights Optimist Community Centre, where a reconfiguration of a multi-purpose community space into a teaching kitchen will take place. Storage unit and several meeting rooms will also be built. In addition, an elevator will be installed, and the building's exterior components, such as doors, windows, and bricks, will be renewed and repaired. Labatt Park, the oldest continually operating baseball stadium, not just in Canada, but the world, will see upgrades that include the installation of accessible washrooms and the replacement of the bleachers and field lighting as well. These upgrades will improve the safety and accessibility of the stadium, which supports local and nonprofit baseball organizations at all levels and the hosting of community events such as day camps and movie nights. The Stony Creek YMCA renovation project will build an addition onto the second floor of the existing facility, enabling the YMCA to offer increased access to recreational programming for members of all ages, particularly youth and vulnerable populations. The lighting in the entire building will also be upgraded to energy efficient LED. COVID-19 has been so difficult for every single community. London's no exception. When we look at community projects like this, the spaces that we hold in common, bringing people together after the pandemic will be not just important, it's going to help transform the community. It's going to help us repair the bonds that have been broken as a result of the pandemic. To tell you more about the remaining projects that are going to benefit London, I'd like to now turn it over to my colleague, Kate Young, to provide remarks. Thank you very much. And colleagues, I meant what I said before. Let's keep working together. There's much more work to do in the community, but today is a great day for our city.
Thank you very much, Peter, and hello, everyone. Thank you for participating in today's announcement. It's hard to believe that a little less than a year ago, our lives were all changed, some more drastically than others. But the COVID pandemic has impacted all of us, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast have been learning to cope with the new realities and the new world that we find ourselves in. But even as the situation continues to evolve, all orders of government across Canada are working together to reduce the impact of the pandemic, to protect lives, to support communities, and to create jobs. And I know here in London, our municipal leaders and health unit have been working night and day on this pandemic, and I thank you for your service. It's time to start looking forward again. It's time to build up and do it in a way that makes our communities more livable, more resilient, and more sustainable places to live, work, and raise our families. And all of us, I think, can agree on one thing. London is a great city to raise a family. Today, we're focused on enhancing the infrastructure that we already have. And so I'm so pleased to join the province of Ontario to announce federal support for improvements in these sport, recreation, and cultural facilities in London. One thing we've learned from this last year, we crave finding ways and places to get together, and it's good for our economy as well. It also provides communities and Canadians with more options to connect, express themselves, and support one another. So today, I'm announcing the Government of Canada is providing support for the following projects on top of the projects already announced by Peter. The Glen Cairn Community Resource Centre will see improvements that include the installation of a new electrical panel and the replacement of the existing HVAC units with a larger unit with greater capacity. At Participation House Support Services, London and area, an elevator will be installed in the Community Place North facility, greatly improving accessibility to programs and services for clients. And that's, of course, so important for our disabled community. And upgrades to the Bob Hayward YMCA will include various upgrades to the building's mechanical systems, upgraded lighting, and an expanded universal change room that will improve accessibility for all visitors. So by investing in spaces like these community centers and parks, we are building more livable and more connected communities. And let's face it, upgrading heating systems and lights, installing elevators, and replacing hot water storage tanks may not seem that exciting, but it is so important to keeping our community facilities running smoothly. Partnerships are key to supporting communities across the country, and that is why our government is working closely with provinces, with municipalities, and stakeholders to get projects built quickly. And the really good news is that investing in infrastructure also creates jobs. So it's an investment for today and tomorrow. We're putting a down payment on a more connected and resilient community for Londoners for generations to come. Thank you and merci.
So thank you very much to MP Fragoskatos and Parliamentary Secretary Young. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to invite the Honourable Jeff Yurek, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks and Member of Provincial Parliament for Elgin Middlesex, London, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Province of Ontario.
Thanks very much, and good afternoon. And I'm pleased here to represent Minister Laurie Scott, Minister of Infrastructure in the provincial government. I'm proud to announce that Ontario is committing over $3.2 million in provincial funding for the 6 very important infrastructure projects in London. The projects will improve sport, recreation, and cultural facilities within our area. Amongst them, as already mentioned, is Labatt's Park, one of the oldest baseball stadiums in North America. This important facility hosts local nonprofit baseball organizations at all levels and community events. I'm pleased that one of the projects we're announcing today will make this stadium safer and more accessible. We're also supporting 5 other projects that will enhance the quality of London's cultural and recreational infrastructure. Investments at the Carling Heights Optimist Community Center, the Glen Cairn Community Resource Center, 2 YMCAs, and finally, one that's near and dear to my heart is the announcement for the installation of the elevator at the Participation House of Supportive Services Community Place North location. These projects together will all benefit the London community by improving safety and increasing accessibility to all residents. Supporting cultural and recreational infrastructure projects like this helps to make our community stronger and more inclusive. And I'm delighted that London will benefit from our joint investment. The Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program is providing up to $30 billion in total project funding for communities across Ontario over 10 years. This includes over $10.2 billion from the provincial government. We're rebuilding the economy and creating healthy and safe communities across Ontario through our federal and provincial partnership. I want to thank all representatives from all levels of government here today, Peter, Kate, and Ed, and thank you for your hard work and dedication to our communities as we work together to contribute to our infrastructure projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Yurek. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to call upon your worship, Mayor Ed Holder, to provide remarks on behalf of the City of London.
Well, thanks very much, John-Paul. This is a really special opportunity for me to provide some acknowledgements. First, if I can, I'm joined a number of councillors who thought it was so important to be on this call, and I'd like to thank them, as well as our staff at City Hall who put heart and soul into how we deal with things through this pandemic, and I need to give them a great acknowledgement. I'd also like to give sincere thanks to Federal Minister Catherine McKenna and Provincial Minister Laurie Scott for recognizing how important London is. But that doesn't happen unless we have great representation. Certainly at the federal level, I've said before how important Peter and Kate's representation is to the city. Can I tell you as well from the provincial government how critical it is that MPP and Minister Jeff Yurek represents our London community. And the way the three of you do this on behalf of the city matters. And so, Jeff, thank you. Peter, Kate, thank you. And I so sincerely mean that. And, sometimes there's different reasons why we do that. Sometimes because we really appreciate it. And hopefully we can come back again and have this same discussion. But sincerely, you've made a difference and you make a difference for our city. So again, Jeff, Peter, Kate, thank you. And what I find interesting about this is that it's again an example of how senior levels of government, along with our municipal government, work together for the betterment of our broader community. I've always said municipalities are the front line and the bottom line. But those are words unless they're backed up by the kind of actions that you have announced today. And from us, thank you. What you've done through this is important, is recognize the importance of community, the importance of culture, the importance of recreation. And these 6 projects that you're announcing, which are kind of tentacled because they touch a lot of pieces within each of the facilities that you've referenced, really matters. So, first I think of Labatt Park. Who doesn't know Labatt Park? In fact, on May the 3rd, we will celebrate the 144th anniversary of the first pitch of the very first baseball diamond recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records. That's pretty amazing, right here in London, Ontario. And we're all proud of what Labatt Park means to this community. So when you talk about replacing the bleachers and the field lighting and providing accessible washroom facilities, that matters. And we all look forward to the point in which we can all go back into Labatt Park and enjoy a game. And and I hope and pray that'll be sooner than later. You know, the same can be said about Carling Heights Optimist Community Center. So in addition to repurposing a teaching kitchen, you've put in the new elevator. You've heard Jeff talk in terms of participation house and installing an elevator there and why that matters so critically. You know, I mean, these things, I heard a brief reference to saying that these may not be like those mega things. It's mega to them. It's absolutely mega to them. Critically important in terms of contributions to way of life. We talk about accessibility. We talk about mattering and making a difference. And so provide these announcements every day, and I will be there to support you every day in this process. And that's why the provincial and federal governments, the way you work together with respect to this, really matters. And so let me say, on behalf of my colleagues who are on this call and those who couldn't be, and all our staff, I am so grateful. And this is a grateful community saying thank you to our provincial and federal levels of government.
Thank you, Mayor Holder. I'd also just like to take the opportunity and thank all of our speakers today, MP Fragascatos, Parliamentary Secretary Young, and Minister Yurek. What I would like to do now is we would like to open up the floor to some questions from our media partners, to our representatives on the call today. So what I would ask is that if you do have a question, that you use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. You'll be put into a queue and we'll be going through the queue and temporarily unmuting you so that you have an opportunity to ask the questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Monica Guzzi, our Manager of Corporate Communications, and she's going to moderate the Q&A. But thank you very much to all of our speakers today for this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, John-Paul. So we do have a few members of media joining us on the call. So again, if you do have a question, please use the raise hand function and we will move to you to ask your question to a member of the representatives. Thank you. Go ahead, Megan Stacey with the London Free Press.
Thanks, Monica. Hope you guys can hear me. I'm wondering about timing, and sorry if I've missed that. Do you expect these to happen like in the next few months? And if anybody has any information about shutdowns, closures, like are these the type of upgrades that will need some time without people in the facilities? So timing and sort of the scope of the upgrades, I suppose. Thanks.
I suppose I can take that. I think, Megan, what we have here is a commitment of all levels of government to work together to make this happen. Of course, there's always the final details to work out with respect to the allocation of funding, but we're announcing this today because it's going to happen. These projects are going to come to fruition. And as far as the exact timeline with respect to local construction is concerned, that's something that's going to be determined at the local level, as it always should be.
Thanks for the question, Megan. I'd certainly let John-Paul or Scott reference the elements of timing. I don't think for the 140th anniversary of the first pitch throughout of that park, do I anticipate that we will have the bleachers and field lighting in place. But I would tell you, we have projects that can work side along the pandemic restrictions. We have seen construction over the past year that has carried on irrespective of this pandemic and being respectful of it to be able to try to balance out safety and implementing this. I think much of it too will depend on what our numbers are as it relates to COVID diagnoses. Today was a better day. Yesterday was a little more challenging, relatively speaking, but overall, Londoners and the response that we've had from Londoners has been amazing. And so I think we'll be balancing out as we get it more fully into our construction season, how we're going to be able to balance out the timing of these projects with a number of projects that we have in place as well. And I'm not sure if John-Paul or Scott would like to add anything to the timing of that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Holder. I won't be able to talk about all of the overarching 6 projects. I think what I would say is that whenever we do rehabilitation work or renovation work on any of our facilities, the first priority for us is to mitigate impact on the users, and we will be committed to that same approach for these projects going forward.
Thank you for your question, Megan. Do you have a follow-up?
No, that's great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Okay, and go ahead, Matthew Trepethick with Global News Radio, CFPL 980. Go ahead, Matthew.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm just looking over the release, and I note that it sort of spells out the allocations from the federal government, 3.9 million, 3.2 from the province, more than 1 million from the city, 1.6 million from remaining recipient funding. Would that be, what would that the remaining recipient funding be from, if someone would be able to expand on that? Would that be maybe it's like the YMCA or one of these recipients sort of kicking in funding themselves into these projects, or would that be money from somewhere else?
That's what I surmise, Matthew. Sorry, it's Kate Young. I would imagine that some of these, like the YMCA, would have some of their own money invested in this as well. But each project would be different, and I think it would require talking to each individual recipient of how the money is going to be collected and used. I'm not sure if John-Paul, if you have anything further to add, or the mayor.
Yeah, I think what I can add is that this is financing from 3 levels of government or 3 parties. So I think, Matthew, your commentary around the YMCA and Kate's follow-up comments are very accurate. So the recipients were required to have 26% of the funding related to the projects, and that was part of the application process.
Thank you. Matthew, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, just I'm not sure who'd be willing to take this or who would be best to ask this. I'll just put it out there on the floor. What in regards to these 6 specific projects, why these projects? Were they put forward as for potential for funding or money or that kind of thing, or were they selected? Would someone be able to maybe address that?
The selection project, I'll start and anyone can join in. The selection project starts at the municipal level. And so the City of London would be the ones who would choose the list of projects that they would like to have funded. And then it goes up the chain. Certainly, as a provincial and federal government, we're very happy to support municipalities in that decision. It's best for the municipalities to make a decision on what the money should be used for.
I'll just add to that, Matthew. It's a very well-placed question. Certainly, yes, it does begin at the municipal level, but it's also up to individual MPs to advocate. These were very straightforward. These were priorities. If you take Labatt Park, for example, I mean, we must get behind our heritage, and I don't think that's understating it. The oldest continually operating baseball park in the world is right here in London. It needed upgrades. It's going to receive upgrades. And I think if you look at the various other projects that we've talked about today, each one is worthy of support. Each one brings people together. That's why they're worthy of support. And there were renovations that were required. It's one thing to invest in community infrastructure. It's another thing to continue to prioritize maintaining that infrastructure. and all levels of government have to come together to ensure that's a priority. I don't know if Jeff wanted to add anything to that. I know he's passionate about participation house in particular, but not all these projects matter too.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Peter. Just add in, it is a combination of the nonprofits, the city putting forward an application, the province doing the due diligence, but it is support of local representation to try to get it over the final market. I think when you have all three levels of government pushing the same type of programs going forward, it's going to be successful, and that's why we have 6 projects here in London. Probably wish we could have 20, but we can't have all the money into our own location at once. So we're proud that we were successful together to get those 6 projects. So thanks very much.
Thank you for that. So I don't see any further questions in the queue from our members of media. So I will thank our members of media for joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much. And over to you, Jon-Paul.
Thank you, Monica. That concludes the formal portions of our announcement today. I just want to express my sincere thanks on behalf of this community for all of your time today to make this wonderful announcement around these 6 projects. So thank you very much, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. So thank you.
Thanks, Jon-Paul. Thanks to everyone. Thanks, Jeff. I think the mayor's already on his next call.
Take care,
Bye
everybody.
for now.